Hey guys, Grill Sergeant. In today's video, we are going to take the same principles and techniques that helped me win an SCA comp in North Carolina, and we're applying it to a tri-tip. The only problem with doing an award-winning ribeye is by the time you do all the work and all the blood, sweat, and tears, well, not so much blood, you're left with something that's less than a pound, and you're like, by the time you're done eating it, you're like, I wish I had more. So today's experiment is we're going to take all the same techniques and apply it to a 2.6 pound tri-tip. It's going to be fun. It's going to be epic. So let's get started. So in a competition, you're going to pick your ribeyes. I really love that there's just nice marbling on here. In a competition, you'd probably remove, stuff like this. We can, in theory, come in, remove a little bit. And the only reason why you kind of want to get some of that fat out of the way is we're going to put some beautiful grill marks on this, and that is going to kind of hinder those grill marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around. I'm actually going to take this fat off to where we can expose the meat. Just take that, just that fat off of it. So it does help having a really, really sharp knife. But now you can see the tri-tip here. I did kind of go in and it exposes the back on here. And this is going to help when we're making our sear marks. The secret trick to getting the most tender, juiciest bite at a steak competition is you are going to do a quick marinade. The number one thing, and this is pretty much what all the comp guys use, is this thing called Ace's Wild OG Wicked Pig. And this is going to help with the quick marinade. You're going to mix 3 tablespoons with 1 can of beef consomme. For marinating a ribeye, it's usually about 11 minutes per side that I do in the competition. Since it's a tri-tip, bigger piece of meat, we can go a little bit longer. I am going to do about a half hour. Now, for doing comps, a Ziploc bag is going to get the job done. Since we're here and we got the tech, I'm actually going to chamber vac the tri-tip with the marinade. And the cool thing is when you do a chamber vac marinade, it kind of opens up the pores of the meat even more. We're going to get the most tender steak we've ever had, but don't have a chamber vac. The bag option is going to be totally fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack open my can of beef consomme. I don't know, something about being left-handed and using a can opener usually doesn't work well, but today it did it great. You can just pour this straight into the bag. Since I'm going to be pouring it into another bag, I'm going to then just place this into here, and then I'm going to be adding 3 tablespoons of Ace's Wild. 1, 2, 3. You can pretty much just get in here, kind of just start mixing this around. Before we actually put it in the bag, all you're going to do is, whether it's a steak, but for this tri-tip, you're just going to come in here and you're pretty much going to get stabby. The chamber vac itself is going to help out a lot, but this is just, I want this to be the world's best tri-tip I've ever had, and I think we are going to get that today. That is stabbed up. So at this point, you can take your Ziploc bag, put this in the marinade, and then start the timer. But now I'm going to get out my chamber vac. So today we're going to be using the WeVac. This is their CV12. And hit the power button on here. You can kind of make these bags to custom length. The only thing is, at first I need to just put a seal on this. So I'm just going to put this in here. I'm going to close this down. And I'm just going to hit the seal button down here. All right, and so now I have an awesome, awesome seal. So now we can get our tri-tip into here. And then I'm going to get it in our bag. Beautiful, just like so. So at this point now I'm going to take our marinade and I'm going to pour it in this bag. Just like so. Want to make sure you get all that goodness in there. And now this is going to go back in the chamber vac. A vacuum sealer would kind of pull all these liquids out and whatnot. Whereas in the chamber vac, that doesn't happen. The liquids kind of stay in place. So I'm going to change this to large. It looks like it's flashing on the video, but that's just the camera settings right now. So now that we have that, I can just close this lid down and let it do the work. All right, so now we got our tri-tip here. So I'm going to set a timer for about 30 minutes, and then we'll tune back in for when we need to season it. All right, timer went off. Our marinade is done. And the first thing you want to do is you want to pat the meat dry. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some paper towels. I'm going to place them down on my cutting board right here. I'm going to slice this open so we can access our tri-tip. Whoop. I'm gonna set it down like that. And the best part is drinking this. It gives you a little pick-me-up. And no, I'm just kidding. Don't drink this. I got some more paper towels right here. And what you're doing is you're kind of getting all that marinade juice off. But now it's time to season. The way to get a first place SCA championship is you're going to layer the flavors. You're not just going to sprinkle on a rub. It's like, well, what's your base rub? And what's your rub on top of that? And what's your finishing dust? There's so much going on. I'm going to walk you through it. Our friends that I met actually at the SCA, they are AnonymousQ, and they have their line called Disruption Rubs. Everyone there was using them, so I figure, you know what, let me give it a try. Just going to be really, really good flavors. I've already done some practice steaks with this. I've done some tri-tips with this. Amazing, amazing flavors, but this is, I believe, going to take it through the roof now that we have the marinade going. So the first seasoning we're going to put on, this is their spicy all-purpose. So instead of actually putting the rub down from this, I actually have this thing, it's called a Cambro Shaker, and I'm going to actually put the rub in here first and then sprinkle it on. And the reason why is it's going to give a really nice, beautiful coat to our tri-tip. So I put some rub in here. It's going to be easier to get an even coating on this. So what I'm going to do is I'll flip this over, and then sprinkling this on, you have just a very nice even coating that the Cambro Shaker helps you get. So now that we got that on, you can kind of pat that in. And don't think, at least for competitions, you really can't over season. Really hard to do. You just want every bite to be like, oh my gosh, this is just so, so good. Don't forget the sides as well. So that is going to be our base layer. And now the second layer of seasoning and rub we're going to put on top of that is going to be 1/2 of their spicy all-purpose and then mixed 50-50 with their beef and more. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Cambro Shaker. And then normally you don't even eyeball this. You would actually use, you know, kind of like a scoop just to make sure you're getting the even amount. But this part, again, we're not in a competition. I'm just going to eyeball this. And so I'm just going to put in equal parts of the beef and more to the spicy AP. I'm going to shake all this. And now the cool thing about the beef and more is this just, it is going to bring the beef flavor through the roof, and it's also going to give it a really nice color. So if you want to come back in here, so now we're going to come in here. So that beef and more is going to have like almost like an orange color to it. So I'm just going to coat this in and pat that down. And again, we want to make sure we are hitting all sides. We're going to let the meat sweat with these rubs in. And the cool thing about using one of these DripEZ tubs is now flies can't get to it. It can chill in here, and we are going to now fire up the grills. I'm going to get a little bit funky today. We're actually going to be using both a gas grill and a pellet smoker, and I'll explain why. For the gas grill, we're going to crank this as hot as it can get. This is going to get to like 700 degrees, and we're going to do some epic sear marks, which is very traditional for when you're turning in competition barbecue. But once we get the grill marks, from there, we're going to transfer it to the Pit Boss Titan. That thing can bathe in smoke. We'll probably set the temperature at about 300 degrees on this. I'm probably going to pull it in the ballpark of around 128 degrees. We're going to wrap it in foil. And then when we are done and letting it rest, it's going to be in that perfect temperature that we would actually turn into a competition. So I'm going to get the Monument grills fired up. I'm going to get the Pit Boss fired up, and we'll tune back in when it's time to get some sear marks. We have both the grills up to temperature right now. The Pit Boss is almost at 300. The Monument is at 700 degrees. That's exactly where we want it. If you let the rub sit a little bit, you can see it's almost like sweating in right now. And so now we're going to get this on the grill, and I'll kind of show you how we're going to get those grill marks. So I'm going to lift the Monument up. And so you see the grill marks that are running this way. So to get these beautiful marks, we're going to put the tri-tip here. We're going to flip it, and then you're going to reverse it. Gonna be kind of crazy. It's better just to show you. So first mark we're gonna get, it's gonna be facing this way. You're gonna hear the sear. Beautiful. Ooh, that is hot right now. And we're gonna close this up, and we'll come back in about a minute. All right, it's been a minute. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this up. Now look at these marks in there. Look how beautiful that looks. And so now what we're gonna do is that same orientation, I'm gonna just set it down right here. Press that down. Ooh, it's hot. All right, it's been a minute. I'm gonna lift this up. Got those beautiful sear marks on that side. And now what I'm gonna do, instead of placing it back down this way, I'm gonna flip it 45. We're just gonna set it down just like so. All right, it's been a minute. So now what I'm gonna do is come in here. This is where you're gonna see these beautiful grill marks. Look at that. That's absolutely beautiful. And so now we're just going to set it right back down here. Oh, and then we will check back in about a minute. All right, first thing I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna turn these burners off because we are done. And let me just kill this propane thing down here, just so I don't forget. All right, let's look at this beautiful bad boy. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So, would you eat this right now? It looks so good, but we are not at the temp yet. So now let's bring it over to the Pit Boss. This thing is running at 300 degrees right now. I'm just gonna set it down right here. Now I do have my temperature probe thing right here. And this is what we're gonna put in the kind of, you wanna put it wherever like the thickest part of the meat is. I'd say it's right around there. So I like holding my finger right about here. And then we are going to come in here, stick it in like so. That tells me that this probe is into the thickest part of the meat. And now what I'm gonna do is close this down. And if I look at the temperature gauge right here, so we're at 87 degrees right now. So we still have a ways to go for this thing to be done. So right when this thing is probably about 100 degrees, I'm gonna flip it. And then once this thing hits about 128 degrees, we're gonna pull it and then let it rest. Right now, at this time, I'm gonna create a steak tent, and that's gonna help continue to kind of slowly raise the temperature. It's gonna help make it really nice and juicy. So to do that, just get yourself some aluminum foil. So I'm gonna flip this in half. I'll make a fold here. Then the side here, I'm gonna make a fold, make another fold. I'm gonna flip it around, make a fold, make another fold. And now what I have is I can put my ribeye, my tri-tip, my steak, whatever I want in there. Once it's done, I can then wrap it up and it's slowly gonna come to temperature in here. All right, we're at 100. So let's give this tri-tip a flip. And the flip kind of just makes, it kind of ensures that we're kind of, everything's being cooked as even as possible. So now we're gonna close it down. So when this hits probably about 128 is when we're gonna pull it. All right, we are almost at 128. This is called grilling dust, and this is kind of like a finishing dust that we're just gonna sprinkle on. This just adds a little last bit of kind of umami flavor. I'm gonna flip that around. Just wanna make sure I coat it on both sides. Okay, now that we got that on, I'm gonna pull this. We're gonna transfer this over here. Place this tri-tip in here. You can take out the probe or you can leave it in. We're just gonna leave the probe in just so we can kind of monitor temps all the way. And now what I'm gonna do is just roll this up. So right now it is at 128 and it is still climbing. And so we're just gonna give this about another 10 minutes and then we'll be ready to carve in. It is saying we're about 136 degrees right now. It's still gonna climb a little bit more. I'm gonna open this up. Now we are gonna pull our tri-tip out. Now, one thing, if you look in the steak bag here, we have a bunch of juice in here. So I'm gonna pour all this juice out onto this tri-tip. Really light dusting. And this is the disruption. This is their grilling dust. All right, let's carve in. So if you wanna look here, the tri-tip, you just want to look at the grains on top, the way the grains in the meat is running. So on tri-tip, you have this section, the grains are running this way, and then in this section, the grains are running this way. They're a little bit different. So what I usually like doing is I'll cut pretty much right down here, and I'll open this up and look at that. We got that beautiful, oh man, that is just good, good, good. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start cutting this way. We're going to, again, cut against the grain. So I'll just come in here. For this one, I'm looking at the grains. The grains are running this way, so I'm going to cut again against the grains. So we're just going to come in here. We're just going to start slicing against the grains. The reason why you want to cut against the grains is that is just going to give you a way more tender, juicier cut. This is my favorite part, the taste test. I think we are definitely in for a treat right now, so we're just going to go in here. Flavor out of this world. This is the most tender tri-tip I've ever had. Really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did want to follow along, I will put all the recipe show notes in the description. Thank you, AnonymousQ, for sending me these. Flavor like I've never experienced before. So, so good. Thank you guys for watching. Catch you on this one. Grill Surgeon out.